top 15 heavy metal albums of all time. And before we start, I will confess, I put a couple glam metal albums that, in my opinion, kind of thread the needle between kind of glam and heavy metal, so let's get into it.
Enforcer was formed sometime in 2005 with the goal kind of to take back what was lost during the 90s, take back real metal and make it as big as possible.
Started out in 2004, originally as a solo project by Olaf Werkstrand? I don't know. In 2004, but eventually evolved into a full touring band that is bringing heavy metal goodness to the masses. First song that I heard from this album was the lead single, Undying Evil, and straight away I was like, holy shit, this guy can scream. You know, and then you watch the music video, you see the naked chick with all the blood, and she's like fucking sacrificing herself in a ritual. And once I saw that, I knew these guys were special. Other standout tracks from the album are the semi-ballad Below the Slumber, the super catchy title track, and Beavis, Review's and Butthead's favorite song, One with Fire.
Talking about Rainbow Time, or?
No, I don't feel bad. I have wonderful memories of that time.
Yeah.
That was. You know, it may seem as though I'm very bitter about Ritchie. I'm not bitter about Ritchie at all. He gave me my great opportunity. Without him, it would have taken me a little bit longer to be where I am today.
From modern heavy metal to proto-heavy metal. And while some may say that this is more classic rock than heavy metal, I counter with this. Vocalist Ronnie James Dio and bassist Jimmy Bain would both go on to play in the legendary heavy metal band Dio. Drummer Cozy Powell would later go on to play drums for Whitesnake and Black Sabbath. And of course, Ritchie Blackmore, the guitar player, the band leader, would go on to be a massive influence to neoclassical heavy metal guitar player Yngwie Malmsteen. So while you could argue, you know, the music itself is borderline heavy metal, I think that given the fact that the band members all went on to feature in heavy metal projects, kind of gives this some credence as to being a heavy metal album. This album starts off with the awesome keyboard and guitar leads of Tarot Woman, and then features the super epic 8.5 minute Stargazer, opened up by that awesome Cozy Powell drum fill. And then the song carries you away into Dio's lyrics full of dragons and wizards. This whole album is just full of wonder and mystery.
A lot of people looked at Accept as an inspiration over the years. I think that makes me very proud because it's often been said that we created the first speed metal song in history, and a lot of speed and thrash bands look at Accept as sort of the opening bell to their career or something, whatever. That makes me very proud.
The main nucleus of this band are guitar and bass duo Wolf Hartman and Peter Baltes, in addition to, as well as, the gruff snarl vocals coming from Short King Udo Dirkschneider. Often referred to as Germany's version of AC/DC, given how Udo kind of resembles Brian Johnson on the vocals, I would actually say Accept is a lot closer sonically to Judas Priest than to AC/DC. But despite this album being named Balls to the Wall, got more than a couple bangers. The Bells of the Ball are the title track, Balls to the Wall, and the amazing song, Losing More Than You've Ever Had, which I'll be honest, I have no idea what that song is about, but Udo's vocal performance is just so passionate that, feel him, man, you know, like, alright, I'm very in touch with my emotions, I'm in tune with my feminine side, okay, don't make fun of me. And speaking of feelings, you know, no offense to the clergy, but you also got Love Child, which is a song about like an adolescent boy kind of coming to grips his own homosexuality and stuff like that, you know. Classic heavy metal trope, of course. Another anthem for the downtrodden is Fight It Back, which is basically a fuck you song to whatever you got going on adversarially in your life. So all in all, this is the kind of album where, you know, if you got a swirly at recess, in the case of Death Heaven fans, or if your partner cheated on you, this is kind of the album that you can turn to be the first ray of sunshine to shine through the cold iron bars of life.
Listen, you formed, what, about 4 years ago, you know? Now, a lot of bands work very, very hard for a lot of years before they make a success, as you've done. How is it you think that you've done it in such a short space of time?
Well, it's hard work, really, a lot of luck as well, but you have to... We played everywhere we could. I mean, there wasn't a gig unturned, you know what I mean?
Sure.
We played everywhere.
Alright, Saxon is fucking legit, alright? Even my old man, who is a total geese, fucks with Saxon. He's 49. You could ask a handful of Saxon fans what their favorite album is and get a different answer from each one. But for me personally, this is my favorite Saxon, because this is the album where Saxon said, fuck a lot of yous, we running shit now. This album opens with Heavy Metal Thunder, and that's the name of the song, and yes, the title sounds exactly like how the song sounds. Vocalist Biff Bifford is just absolutely roaring, and this song is just the perfect way to get the album started. You have the infectious title track, Strong Arm of the Law, which good luck getting that chorus out of your head. And then with the album closer, one of my all-time favorite heavy metal solos of all time, Dallas, 1 p.m., which is a song about when the CIA, when Lee Harvey Oswald shot JFK. Moral of the story, the sound is consistently good front to back, and quite frankly, Saxon is just all about fucking rocking out. So if you're all about rocking out, give this a spin.
Were you supporting yourself all along?
Yeah, I was singing beer commercials in Toronto at Sounds Interchange, the studio.
What kind of beer were you promoting?
Schooner beer. It's a Canadian one. Sounds Schooner, eh? Can I have a beer? I gotta go out. I gotta go.
Now, I might have some heads turning here, either because you don't think Skid Row belongs on the list, or you think the debut is better. But I think you'd be surprised just how heavy this album is. I mean, obviously it's not, brutal death metal heavy, but still, you know what I mean. Burned the CD onto my computer, and I was just absolutely blown away by Monkey Business. So as you probably heard, this album sounds absolutely massive. I mean, the guitars and bass are just super full and rich. The drums sound absolutely massive, and that snare drum just has this fucking spine-shattering crack to it. So anyway, I'm listening to the rest of the album, like, alright, Slave to the Grind, that's a good song. The Threat, that's a good song. Then we get to track 4, my favorite song on the album, Quicksand Jesus. Now, I will admit, this song is a ballad. Not in the same way of like Poison's Every Rose Has Its Thorn, but more so kind of like Metallica's Fade to Black. It's a song that has a lot of these kind of dynamic movements to it. My deep cut shout out for the album would be Riot Act, which is kind of just sounds like a punk song, to be honest. I thought it might have been a cover. I couldn't see any artist credited, and in doing some research, I learned that the bass player, Rachel, who also does a lot of the songwriting, is a huge Ramones fan, as am I. So that probably explains that.
I'm not up to preaching to people. That's not what I want to do. I think people should believe whatever they want, and we can be just as good friends no matter what religion you believe in. I think it's important you believe in something. I don't want to preach, but if people want to know something about it, I'm willing to discuss with them. I've had discussions on television in Denmark with priests, and
Oh, really?
yeah, poor them, yeah. They can't answer my questions, unfortunately.
Heavy metal royalty from the mind of King Diamond. Now, I've heard some people online refer to this as first wave black metal or proto black metal. Me personally, I kind of disagree with that. I know the lyrical and visual themes revolve around Satan and the occult and things like that. But to me, the music is just pure heavy metal. This album is full of headbanging riffs, fantastic guitar melodies, and of course King Diamond's iconic falsetto vocal harmonies. Not going to name any tracks. 1 through 9 are fantastic. Just pick a song and you'll probably dig it. As a matter of fact, Mercyful Fate is so legit. This is the shit that Slayer thinks is the shit. So I'm going to just leave that there. If you don't fuck with Mercyful Fate, then I don't know. Go listen to fucking Sleep Token or something.
And speed too, right? When Motorhead first started to emerge, I think you guys were regarded as being faster than a lot of the stuff that was going on.
Well, we were probably taking more speed than anybody else in them.
Ace of Spades is a very, very close second, but I had to give the edge to Overkill. The album opener, Overkill, is just one of those transcendental metal tracks. One of those songs that you hear it, and it's immediately obvious that something special is going on here. So I play the drums, and this song starts off with a super iconic double bass drum fill from Filthy Animal, which is a stage name, of course. I think his real name is something like Phil Collins or something like that. But what this song sounds like to me is the sound of freedom. Freedom in the sense of dropping your inhibitions and any mental barriers, just going fucking crazy and saying, fuck it, we ball. So yeah, that's the first song. On deck, you have Stay Clean, which is a second helping of Bluesy Fuzz, featuring an awesome bass solo from Lemmy Kilmister. You got other classics on this album like No Class, Damage Case, and one of my personal favorite songs on this album is called I Want to Be Your Sister, because sometimes I want to be a woman. Wait, did I say that out loud? Okay, what I meant to say was, another one of my favorite tracks is I Won't Pay Your Price, because I'm a very, very masculine man. I'm absolutely not afraid of confrontation, because I am an alpha, or I'm a Sigma. I'm a Sigma male, yes.
Hi, Night Flight fans. We're talking with the one and only Ozzy Osbourne. Good evening, Ozzy.
What?
Good evening, Ozzy.
Hello there.
How are you?
Fine.
Now look, I know everyone loves Randy Rhoads. I like Randy Rhoads, but I'm a Jake E. Lee fan through and through. I just think he has a great combination of glam metal melodic instincts as well as just pure, straight up heavy metal riffage. Bark at the Moon is my favorite Ozzy Osbourne song ever, and I really like the message of the song You're No Different, which is basically just a song saying, you know, if you live in a glass house, don't throw stones, which obviously, you know, fairly relevant today. Other great tracks include Rock and Roll Rebel and Waiting for Darkness. And one thing I want to say real quick is a big fuck you to Sharon Osbourne, because she screwed Jakey Lee out of writing credits for this album. And if you play any music from this album on YouTube, your video is going to get blocked. So you know what? Fuck you, Sharon, and your stupid Ozempic fate.
What do you do to relax on tour? I gather you've got a football team.
Yes, we've got a very successful football team. Which we've got a kind of little league amongst all the bands that do the sort of the world tour circuit, like Rainbow and Def Leppard and Scorpions and all these sort of groups, and we take them on at sort of 11 a side, 45 each way, referees, the whole thing, hospitalisations, stretcher cases, everything, you know.
Aces High was the first Iron Maiden song I'd ever heard, and subsequently this became the first Iron Maiden album I ever heard. And I mean, how could you not fall in love with an album that has this album art on it? You know, you probably know this album, you know the classics, Aces High, 2 Minutes to Midnight, Power Slave, things like that. But when you dig a little deeper, you get a few other kind of overshadowed gems, such as The Duelists, or the Rush-inspired 13-minute track, Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner.
The thing that I think that I do best, I mean, the greatest gift that I have is not the talent to sing or play or whatever, it's to communicate to people. And the best thing that I can do is to use that platform that I have to say things.
When the wider heavy metal scene as a whole was starting to fall apart with the onset of grunge in the early 90s, Blackie Lawless decided to respond by writing a heavy metal concept album of all things. So the story of this album is basically there's a 16-year-old kid named Jonathan, and he wants to grow up to be a guitar hero. So, you know, start of the album kind of focuses on the hungry years of being an artist, you know, the raw passion and fire. Then as you move on, you start to see the come up, you're starting to play bigger shows, starting to tour the world. And then, of course, the main point of emphasis with this album is the dark side of fame. So that's things like the leeches, the debauchery, the backstabbing. You know, I think Blackie Lawless really wanted to kind of pull the curtain open and show people a lot of the dirty and ugly sides of fame. Although this album has a 58-minute runtime, it actually feels a lot more concise than that. I think that concept albums have a tendency to kind of overstay their welcome and be a little too self-indulgent, but this concept album just wants me wanting more. My favorite tracks on the album are Arena of Pleasure, Murders in the Rue Morgue, and the super epic and somber closing track, The Great Misconceptions of Me.
Five, it's good to see you.
How you doing?
You know, we were just talking on Music News about you guys being in the studio right now, working on a new album.
Let's see, the new album's called Under Lock and Key. That's what we have to keep us in this next tour, because we're going to be kicking some serious, you know. Yeah, right.
You people need to put some fucking respect on Dokken's name. Absolutely disgraceful score on Metal Archives, and I just cannot fathom how you could listen to songs like Unchain the Night, In My Dreams, Lightning Strikes Again, and Don't Lie to Me, and be like, yeah, this shit sucks. And look, I know on some level, you know, some people just don't jive with Don Dokken's voice, but I mean, come on, these songs are just so fucking infectious, how can you stay away? So you're gonna tell me that Dokken are posers because they're rocking the glam look? I mean, it is kind of a poser thing to pose, you know? But man, these guys got some fucking chops. So the drums and bass on this album admittedly are kind of replacement level, but guitarist George Lynch and vocalist Don Dokken are absolute maestros. If you don't believe me, listen to the last 30 seconds of Lightning Strikes Again, where Don Dokken just absolutely pierces the heavens with a super high falsetto. And of course, George Lynch's guitar solo from In My Dreams, which a lot of people give him shit for just copying Eddie Van Halen because he does a lot of tapping and shit like that. But the stuff he does is really hard. I'm going to demonstrate on guitar just how difficult this solo is. So it has this kind of legato part with some pull-offs. So you have 12th fret, 15th fret, and then 19th fret, which as you can see, that is a bit of a stretch. And it goes from there, and then you do another stretch, 12, 15, 20. This is a big fucking stretch. I'm going to do my best to play it just so you realize how hard this is. Yeah, so I'd like to see some other posers fucking play some shit like that, alright? And it's because of solos like that Dokken rules, and they're at number 5.
The song Holy Diver is really about a Christ figure who on another place, not Earth, dying for the sins of man so that man could start again and be cleansed and do it properly. So the same thing happened on this other far distant planet. And all the people on this planet are saying to him, you know, they're calling him the Holy Diver. Holy Diver because he's about to go to another place, to another planet, do what he did the first on this place, save people from their sins, or absolve them from their sins by having himself killed.
Hail to the diminutive devil horn proliferator, who is making his second appearance on this list. And not far behind him was bassist Jimmy Bain, drummer Vinny Appice, and androgynously named guitar hero Vivian Campbell. You got Stand Up and Shout, Straight Through the Heart, the immortal heavy metal classic Holy Diver, which features that iconic Vivian Campbell solo in it. This album also features Dio's trademark grandiose and fantastical lyrics. I imagine a lot of you are already kind of familiar with this album, but you know, if you're new to the genre, this is a great place to start. And what you need to do is look out for this CD on your local record store shelves.
And what happened with Black Sabbath? We all ended up junkies and alcoholics and everything. Like the drummer ended up in a rehabilitation center. I did. We just, you know, we took LSD, we took cocaine, we took vast amounts of marijuana. It was fun at the time, but then we all just sort of this ain't a very good idea anymore.
So you have a more stable life now?
No.
I'll be honest, this was a tough choice. Black Sabbath has a massive discography with a lot of great albums. 1989's Headless Cross featuring Tony Martin on vocals. 1980's Heaven and Hell, their first album with Ronnie James Dio, who could have potentially had 3 appearances on this list. I think 1974, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, probably their most progressive album in the discography. And of course, the classic debut album that I don't have the fucking cover for, but I got the back. But obviously, you know, had to give it to Paranoid. Where is it? There it is. I mean, of course, the Titanic classics, War Pigs, Paranoid, Iron Man. But, you know, dig a little deeper, you got Hand of Doom, Electric Funeral, Planet Caravan. You know, everyone knows Black Sabbath, everyone knows this album. You hear these songs at friggin' Giant Stadium. Iommi is the riff god, Geezer Butler, the lyrical master, Bill Ward is a beast on the drums, and Ozzy is Ozzy.
Doris Day story again. I'll just jump out this window. Kill me now. Kill me now. If I hear this fucking Doris Day story, go on. Well, the story goes that Ian and Ken came over to the house and I was upstairs having a shower, harmonising with Doris Day. If anything could be fucking Gary in the world than that, I don't know what is. But I wasn't. I refute that till they put me in the earth.
Now, I forget what it's called, but I know there is a movie that's kind of loosely based on Judas Priest. But I think it would be cool if they made a movie about this album, but took it from the perspective of a redemption story. You know, rewind 5 years to 1985, and Judas Priest released their very controversial Turbo album, which was noticeably more commercial, featured a lot of synthesizers, and kind of divided the fans. It had, at best, a mixed reception. Fast forward a few years to 1988, Judas Priest released Ram It Down, which was noticeably heavier, and the band deliberately said that they wanted to kind of go into a more heavier direction. But instead of assuaging the fans' fears that Judas Priest was selling out, it gave them new fears that Judas Priest was washed. Now, Ram It Down is not the worst album ever made. It's definitely not the best either. It's got a handful of good songs, but, you know, keep in mind, this is 1988. Heavy metal is no longer the cutting edge of heaviness. Thrash metal has that title now, and if you were to dig deeper into the underground, you would start to see the seeds sprouting for death metal, black metal, and overall more extreme metal. So facing the prospect of artistic irrelevance, Judas Priest went into the lab, and in 1990 they came out with the masterpiece, Painkiller.
Leather Rebel, lightning in the dark.
The opening track, Painkiller, is a staple of Judas Priest's live show and one of my favorite songs, regardless of genre, ever. This album would be the debut of drummer Scott Travis, who's still with the band today. And my gosh, what a first impression to make on the drums with the first 20 seconds of Painkiller. This album is like 80% heavy metal, 20% thrash metal, and just an absolutely incredible response to all the haters. Glenn Tipton brought his lead guitar abilities up to a new level with things like sweep picking and just blazing fast lead lines. The production overall is fantastic, and Judas Priest, Fallen Heroes, rise from the ashes like a phoenix. Before we get to top spot, just want to do some honorable mentions. 1983, Motley Crue, Shout at the Devil. I believe 1983 or 1984, Rat, Out of the Cellar. Kind of more glam metal picks, but I think they kind of thread the needle enough with heavy metal. Then I have it in this box set, but Grim Reaper, See You in Hell. I thought this was called Wrath of the Ripper for a second. This album, Rock You to Hell, is also very good, from 87, and this one is 83, I believe.
Can you imagine my wife's parents, when they saw pictures first time, like this guy would like to marry your daughter, you know, it's like, I don't think so.
Come on, people. He's called King Diamond for a reason. However, it wasn't just the King on this album. He brought the whole f***ing court with him, including melodic genius, lead guitarist Andy LaRocque, absolute beast Mickey D on the drums. Even the bass player, who's normally useless, has an eye patch. And of course, the main man, the King, with the falsettos, the vocal harmonies, the horror concepts, the mastermind. King Diamond. This album has riffs, it has melodies, it has compelling songwriting, and I've never seen an album so consistently and so highly praised. This has a score of about 98% on Metal Archives, if I believe, which I'm not saying that really validates my point. You know, Metal Archives is about as reliable as the Secret Service. But just still, like, the fact that it has that high a score with that many reviews just goes to show the quality of this album. Once again, no real point in going through any individual tracks. The whole album is perfect. Or did I say that because I didn't actually listen to the album, I don't know any of the songs, and I just find safety in consensus in having this as my number one pick? Well, I guess you'll just have to listen to it and decide for yourself.
Subscribe to the Downfall Network.
No!